and welcome back to my channel. My name is Zoe, and in today's video I want to show you my 23 books that I want to read in 2023. I filmed a similar video in the, I think in the end of 2021 or the start of 2022, and I already had a list for this year too, with 22 books I want to read in 2022, and I think this was such a fun idea to have like a year TBR. They want to do this again for next year. I will link somewhere here my list from last year, but what I can say for you is that I almost managed to read all the books on the list. I'm currently listening to the last 2 hours of Blade Breaker, and then I will have the last book finished, the second to last book, and one book I didn't manage to read, but I put this on my 2023 list, so I just put this over for the next year. But still, that I read like 21 books of the list is still, I think, a good number. So, and I would think we start directly with my fantasy books, because the one book that I had on the 2022 list is a fantasy book. So we will talk about the fantasy books first. So the book that I had on my 2022 list is Words of Radiance. This is the German version, and this is only the first half. The second half is somewhere still on my TBR shelf. I didn't manage to start this book. I didn't start this book because I read The Way of Kings in the middle of 2021, and I couldn't remember everything from the book. So my thoughts were like, okay, do I read The Way of Kings again and then read The Words of Radiance? And then I was not in the mood for like big books, and it was a kind of reading slump over the year, or in a fantasy slump. I think this is the better word for it. I'm kind of back now, but it's still like slumpy. And then when I finally had the motivation to read Words of Radiance, it was already like the middle of November, and then was like with uni, with work, I was like, I just want to read short books and enjoy the time reading these books and not start picking up like a huge book. So yeah, Words of Radiance is on the list. This is a high fantasy book by Sanderson, and it's about war with multiple POV. This is the easy way to say that. Then I have A Fire Endless on the list by Rebecca Ross. This is the second book in the duology. The first one is A River Enchanted. This is inspired by, I think, Irish folklore. I don't know. And it's about a story where children disappear, and the queen of the island is on the search with her enemy for these kids that are gone. And we follow the story, and this is the second book, and this is by the way the liquid edition, which is stunning, and I can't wait to read that. So we have that. Then one book that is not out yet is Hellbent by Lee Paduro. This is a soft fantasy. It's a fantasy book, but it's more the dark academia with mystery, a little bit of fantasy vibes. I would say I put this on the fantasy list because I think it's classified as a fantasy, but I would say if you're not a really big fantasy reader, the Night House and Hellbent would be a great option for you, because it's not like that prominent. But yeah, Hellbent is the second book. I can't wait. I want to read Night House again, I think in January or February, I don't know. And I can't wait to read it again, because I really enjoyed the story about Alex, and she's she goes to Harvard to, was it Harvard or was it Yale? To a big Ivy League uni in the US, and she goes and tries to solve a mystery. I forgot which uni it was, but I can remember that back then when The Ninth House was published, this was a 5-star for me. So I can't wait to read finally Hellbent, because I'm waiting for this too long, and I think this has the potential to betray me because I just was so excited for the book. But okay, The next book, I have this on my Kindle. It's The Touch of Ruin by Scarlett and Clair. This is the second book in the Hades and Persephone series. And I read A Touch of Darkness, I think 2021. Yeah, I think I read it 2021. I kind of liked it, and I was like, you know, I need books for this list. So maybe read finally that book that I have on my Kindle for almost 2 years now. So yeah, I will continue this series and read that book. And the next book is A Light in the Flame by Jennifer Armentrout. This is the second book in the prequel to the From Blood and Ash series. So I'm not going much into detail about what is going on in this book, because I think if you are really interested in reading From Blood and Ash, if you really want to read the whole series with the prequel and all that stuff that comes up next year, I will say I'm not telling you now what happens in the books, because it would definitely spoil a lot. And so yeah, I will not say anything. If you're interested, search a book, okay? If to know what it's going on in there, but it will be definitely a spoiler if I tell you what's going on in the book. The next one is The Dragon's Promise by Elizabeth Lim. This is the second book, also in a duology, I think. The first book was Six Crimson Cranes. I really enjoyed the book. It was definitely a different story, a different type of YA book, with not the classic themes. It's mostly about Shiori, the princess, and her brothers there was a spell on them, so they are turning into cranes, I think, over the day. And in the night they're her brothers again. She's on the search for them to bring them back to the normal life. And it was a really interesting story. It's a lot about family than actually like the typical YA fantasy points. So I'm excited to read that. I heard a lot of reviews about this, that this is not as good as the first book, but I try to be open-minded when going into this book, and I'm excited to finish the series. I have The Stardust Thief by Tracy Abdullah. I wanted to read this book this year. I didn't have this on any list, but I wanted to buddy read this and never did. I don't know what's going on in the book, to be honest, and I try to be open-minded. It has multiple POVs. It's a fantasy story. The next book is Legendborn by Tracy Deonn. This is also a book I heard a lot of great things about. This, I think all my friends in the Citadel and on Isabella from Tone of Pages Patreon talked a lot about the book, that everyone loves this, and I don't know a lot of what's going on in the book at all. I was like, a fantasy book with a black main character, I need to read this. So I put this on the list, and I hope I can read this next year. And also the next book is out, which is great. So if I like this, I can read the next book right afterward. I will not do this. I never do this. I never read books from back to back. So forget that I said that. And two last books for the fantasy books is the second to last is A Day of Falling Night by Samantha Shannon. And I'm so excited about this book. This is the prequel to the Priory of the Orange Tree. The Priory of the Orange Tree was already a sapphic story with dragons in it. The dragons were not that prominent, so forget the dragons. It's not about the dragons at all. Forget the dragons and forget the Orange Tree. The Orange Tree was also a minor part in the story, so I don't know why the book is called like that and why the dragon is directly in front of the cover, because there are not a lot of dragons and there are not a lot of orange trees. But the book itself, I really enjoyed the story, and I'm so excited to read the prequel to see how the world was built, and maybe there are more dragons in it, because dragons are cool. Dragons are nice. So yeah, I'm excited to read that, but obviously this book will be out next year. I pre-ordered I think the Waterstones edition, because it has a bonus chapter in it. And the last book is the one-shot Emporer. I read the first book this year or the end of last year. I can't remember when I even read it. And I kind of enjoyed the first book. It's also a fantasy mystery kingdom with multiple POV, and I'm excited to read the next book. But I can't really remember the last book, so I can really tell you what's going on. So we will forget that I even mentioned the book, and I will listen to this and maybe the memory will come back. And then I have on my list one sci-fi book, and this is also by Brandon Sanderson, and this is Starsight. This is also the second book in the Skyward series. I have, besides the book that will be published next year in the series, I have all the books here, but I only read Skyward this so far. But Skyward is about Spencer. She wants to be a pilot like her dad was, and Skyward is the crew that she is in, and there's also a mystery going on, what's really behind all the attacks, and it's kind of interesting to see. I think I rated Skyward 3 stars. It was an average book for me for the beginning of a series, and I plan to read books back to back because I thought all the series is off, but also the short stories. But then, like I said, I never do that. I never read books from back to back. I do this occasionally, but it's not my main theme that I'm like, I have a whole series and then read this from back to back. Except from Dark Romance Mafia. I think I did this a lot of this year. So next, let's go right into the contemporary books. Contemporary is like a large genre name because there are different subtypes to contemporary. Not every contemporary is the same. There are a lot of differences, more like a romance contemporary or stuff like that. But I have a few books on the list that I would say are contemporary because they're not mainly in the focus of one genre. Contemporary is a genre. Forget what I say. I'm not here correctly. So the first book that I want to read is Lessons in Chemistry by Bonnie Garmus. I'm already planning to read this in January because I want to read this with a friend. And this book is about a woman. She is, I think, also a nominist in chemistry, and then she becomes a single mother and she needs to stay at home and she's not really in chemistry anymore, and then she has her own cooking show, and it's in the beginning of 1960. Yeah, it's the early 1960s. So I'm excited to read this. I hope there's a little bit of feminist stuff in there, because if you follow this channel, you know that I'm a raging feminist, and I'm excited to read that. So I have this on my list. Then we have here On Earth We Breathe With Gorgeous by Voung. I heard a lot of great things about this book. I don't know what's going on, but it's really short, so I don't really want to know what's going on in the story. Again, I'm not really the type of person who reads the back of a book or the synopsis. I just try to dive into the book without knowing anything. No, this is not good every time, but I'm excited to read it. It's also really short and the cover is gorgeous. So I have this on my list. Then I have here All My Rage by Sabaa Tahir. I bought this because Kelsey read it and cried because of it. This is the only reason because I bought this. But I'm excited to read this and I'm ready to cry. Next book I have here is Convenience Store Woman. I think this was also a book that was really popular on BookTok. Not BookTok, on BookTube. And I heard a lot of people talking about this book. It's also a really, really short book. It, surprisingly, look at the edges. Like, there's a lot of space here, here on top, on the sides. So this would be a quick read. This is about a woman that she works in a convenience store, and a lot of people tell her do something with your life, and she's like, nah, I'm really happy at working at a convenience store, which is valid. We need people that work in normal stores, and it's totally fine to work there. So I'm excited to read that. Then I have here Golden Pieces by Kathleen Glasgow. This is a BookTok book that I heard a lot of things about this, that people are crying, and it's really sad, it's really traumatizing, and I'm also again here for being traumatized and crying. these were all the contemporary books, and now we go to my non-fiction books, because I actually put 4 books on my list, which is exciting. I try to find a good mixture in the books of if I want to read more fantasy and romance, and I think I found a good mixture between all the books, to all the genres, to read books by every genre. The first book is Know My Name by Shannon Miller. I'm really excited to read this book. It's about Shannon Miller. She got raped also I think at the Ivy League uni, Stanford. And her whole case got really popular, and she really in the media for that. And she talks about her story, what happened and how she's feeling. And this is, I try to put it off to read it, because honestly this kind of theme, it's a really hard topic and you need to be mentally prepared to read this. And I think I'm now, so I put this on my list and I will want to read this year. Then I have My Body by Ratajkowski. This is also a book that I saw a lot on BookTube, and it's about Ratajkowski is a model, I think also for Victoria's Secret. Let's see, I can't even read because of my ring light, but I think she also worked for Victoria's Secret, and she talks about body dysmorphia and being a model, what it does to your body and mind to be a model and be in this industry, and I think that's really interesting and I want to read it. Then I have Everything I Know About Love by Dolly Alderton. This is also a book I saw a lot on BookTube, Bookstagram, Book Talk, and it's about Dolly Alderton talking about love in different times of her life and what it meant for her in the different parts of her life and different ages, and I'm here for it. I want to read that. The last book in the non-fiction section is Tom Felton's biography, Beyond the Wand. I'm really here for biographies from stars that I enjoyed watching them in movies, and I think it's interesting to read another book by a child star, to see how he experienced the past, what maybe did this to him, and I'm here for it and I want to read this. And I also like Tom Felton. He's a really funny guy, and I really like to follow his Instagram, and I'm excited to read his book. And then I have 3 more books. Let's start with the romance books. There are 2 romance books that I want to read. One is on my Kindle. It's Twice Shy by Hogle. My friend Victoria recommended the book to me after being in a really depressive mode and in a slump. I needed some serotonin. Serotonin means for me to buy books, and I did that, and she recommended the book to me, and I still haven't read this, and I'm really excited to read this and have this on my list. I don't know a lot of what's going on. I think this was Friends to Lovers. I can't really remember the other book that I have on my list, but the book will be out in next year, is Happy Place by Emily Henry. I love Emily Henry books. I would read everything by her. I know I didn't really enjoy Book Lovers, but I think I was just disappointed by the whole genre of the book, because it was not really a romance book, it was much more contemporary. So I try to prepare myself that maybe Happy Place is kind of the same style, that it's more contemporary than romance. I don't know. I don't know what's going on in the book and what kind of style of cover we follow, but I'm here for it. I want to read that. And the last book on this whole list, and I hope by the end of the video now I've counted, I told you 23 books that I want to read next year, is the poems by Emily Dickens. I have this on my Kindle, the complete poems by Emily Dickens, and I'm really excited to read them. I'm not really into poems. I'm not. I read some from time to time. I read poems, and sometimes I like them, sometimes I like them not. I think it's really a really subjective thing for poems, but I heard a lot of great things about Emily Dickens, and also she got, like, there were a lot of people that phrase Emily Dickinson in other books, and there are a lot of shows out there, maybe a lot of times because people think that Emily Dickinson is a lesbian, which is something I fully support, and I'm here for it, and I want to read the poems. This was the whole list of 23 books I want to read in 2023. I will write them all down below. I no longer link books because my whole description books exploded when I tried to link every book in down below. But on my Goodreads I will also build a whole section with my 23 books, and then I hope I will finally finish all the books in next year, especially Words of Radiance, because it's the second time it's on the list. But you know what? I started to write in January 1st. I started Words of Radiance. Watch me not doing this. But yeah, this was the whole list. Let me know what kind of books you want to read next year, or maybe here's a book on the list that you want to read too. Let me know, maybe we can buddy read. I'm really open for that. And then I wish you all a happy day, week, whenever you watch this, and a happy new year whenever you watch this, and then I'll see you in my next video. Bye!